I'm Pallavi Bhosale, working with Tieto Every India. I'm here to represent work in Finland. Why Finland? Finland is constantly ranked highly in the league tables of the world's most innovative countries. In the burgeoning tech ecosystems, it has grand ambitions over the size of the country, one of the wealthiest countries and most stable societies in the world. Finland is the top countries regarding its growth in development, economical, technological, and social sphere. If you see here, these points are mentioned. We have various aspects like competitive, professional, innovation policies. Coming to the policies, Finland has recently introduced an innovation policy that encourages companies to invest in the projects which would be positively impact societies whole through things like research, funding, innovation, legislations, environment policies, collaboration, network, and platform. Then I'm here from Tieto Every. We have around ten thousands of customers across 90 countries, and those are served via global delivery centers. We are developers of digital pioneers. We have various projects in banking, finance, transaction, engineering, oil and gas, and also paper industry as well. My experience of working with Finn team members was very gratifying, providing creative solutions, providing competitive solutions, and working with great professionals are the best parts of it. Also, while working with customers, working with end users, I have found that the requirements what we receive from Fin guys, they are very crisp and clear. They are open for discussions. The collaborativeness what we see in Fins are very nice. Moving on, let me walk you through the agenda of today's session. We'll be going through a couple of architecture patterns like monolithic, microservices, hybrid architectures, micro front-end architectures, and then we'll be moving on to the front-end side, and we'll be discussing about components, project structures, accessibility point of view, and then we'll be also summarizing in advantages. Since you all are working in IT industry, this is the basic monolithic architecture with which you must have started working. This is kind of server-side application which takes whole responsibility of giving the client side presentation layer logic, serving the data, and doing a middle layer kind of logic. And in here, scaling is a bit tough. When you have to do a scaling, your entire monolithic architectures need to be duplicated on multiple servers, and that too with the load balancer, so that there is no delay on the client side or there is no wrong data provided there. Now when we move ahead, this architecture got evolved into microservices. In here you would be saying many services that are developed. These services are small, granular, independent. They would be having couple of functionalities only. These services are independent, so those can be scaled independently. Now, considering there are certain functionalities which are common and these are getting repetitive in each service, so you have kind of code replication. So how do you deal with that? To deal with that, you can have a common library, common functionality separated out in single service that can be communicating with the other services. Now we are discussing about services communicating with the other service. So what do you mean by that? So you can have different types of protocols. One is HTTP, or you can use messages. When you want immediate response back, or you need certain delay, like you don't have to worry. It is just a postman kind of thing. You just deliver a letter, and whenever the postman is available, he will be taken, go ahead. That kind of logic, if you want to build, you can go ahead with the messages queues. Now, in here you would be saying that there is an API gateway. What it is? It would be hiding all the services from the customer. So this layer is used for making abstraction to the client side. This also works as a proxy. Moving ahead. Now each service is deployed separately what will you be achieving is you can work on individual services in parallel, so that you will be having faster development. Data handling in each service is very easy. They would be dealing with the particular data. So you may be having separate database developed. One is for A system and second is for B. Let's go ahead and discuss about what was the next after this. Now, next system which got evolved after this was hybrid microservices architecture. In this, some of the parts of the applications are developed as a microservices and rest remains monolithic. So microservice is not a silver bullet point that you apply it in every and each design. So there are certain factors, those needs to be discussed. So you will have to take a call and decide which part of the system goes in where. Now, this is the most amazing factor what is available in the market. This is evolutionary system that has been seen across the various projects. What it is use various JavaScript applications in single page applications. It gives opportunities to all the teams to have control over technology stacks. They can work independently, parallelly without disturbing the second system. It is a big app consisting of various smaller apps. Why to use it? These days, every now and then, there are development happening in the supportive libraries, features what that technology gives. So if you want to have leverage of all these technologies, you should be going for this kind of architecture. Now, this way you would be able to split your apps functionality-wise, like Angular and React, but they all will be working together in a harmony. Since we are talking about SPA combinations here, we should be also thinking about how loading happens, how apps are loaded when you run the application, how automated deployment happens. To deep dive into it, we should be visiting another seminar by Mr. Rajsekhar on micro frontend to other house. But please wait, you can catch up with him later. Let's go ahead with some of the benefits of this system. Herein, since each team would be working on various apps, they would be able to upgrade their system without impacting other layer. So if there is any new version available in particular system, that would be upgraded immediately without having to upgrade your entire system. Now all this was about the backend and whatever you have learned so far. When we go with the front end, what it is. Now you must have heard MVC, MCP and all this, but I'll not be talking about MVC. My daughter also knows what is MVC. It is kind of taught in primary school. So it is model view controller. Now this has been evolved in MVP. It is model, view and presentation. In this kind of architecture, the model and the presentation, they work in agnostic matter without having to work with them. Now this then evolved in MVVM pattern, wherein you will be having binding, two-ways binding. So whenever the view model gets updated, the model also gets updated. This is the backbone of your Angular. Now, when you are developing a front-end application, this way your application should look like. You should be segregating shared libraries, kind of bootstrap, which are needed for your entire application to run. You should find out in a separate brick called as shared brick. Now, moving ahead, there is a core brick. This should consist of your all UI-related functionalities like tooltips. You want to show some notifications, some failure messages. All these should be captured in one single brick called as core. And now feature is very simple. It depends on the functionalities what you want to develop. For each functionality, you can create a separate feature. And features are also dependent with each other. They can be communicating with each other. They can be compromised. They can be consistent with each other. They will be sharing data. Now this was about very theoretical, but what it means at the end of code level. So you would be having these kind of breakdown that you would be having assets, config libraries. So here I am discussing about assets. So when you are building your project, there would be font library, there would be couple of styles applied, images, these all go in assets. And then the application layer, as you know, the view of your code, the components, the routes, they all be as it is. Styles would be also major component here. As per your project structure, you would be creating a separate CSS file which would be placed here. And so in build life cycle, whenever you want to replace from one front-end style to another, kind of branding, that would be happen in the CI/CD pipeline. So you don't have to rewrite the styles again. You just replace the styles as per the need, as per the various environments. So this is a time-saving kind of folder structure. Now going ahead, till this we discussed about how your code on the front-end side should be segregated, how you should be creating folder structure, what should be the logic behind it. But on the UI side, how it should be looking. So this is kind of accessibility aspect. When accessibility means the front-end would be used by various people, so you should be ensuring that people with different abilities can access, understand, and navigate through entire content of your application, regardless how they are accessing it. Now, think you are having a screen where there is an entire dark color and you are having a font with lighter blue, lighter gray. So this kind of breaks your usability perspective. So that's why front-end team should also consider accessibility aspect, considering inclusive design, coherence, how your UI components should interact with each other. You can use simple tab or you can use mouse or enter keys to go ahead with the next element. While separating these components, you should be having sections, and each section you should have a label using headers tags. Now you should also be using images for branding purpose. When you are using images, also make sure you use alt text. Why? Because in some case, suppose page loading does not happen, your images are not loaded completely, but still user navigation shouldn't halt. When he mouse overs or sees the alt text, he should be able to go ahead. Or you can use null data for alt when your screen is self-explanatory without having to understand what that picture which did not load is. Now color contrast, what we were discussing about. So it is about the text which are displaying on the screen and the background. It will help people who are having lower vision, so they would be able to understand what the font is, what the text you have written in it. Now you should also consider about logo branding on each screen. While developing logos, you should develop two types of logos, for darker screen as well as for lighter screens. Now, if you go ahead, W3 Web Accessibility Initiative have also declared a couple of accessibility standards. Those are used worldwide, and those are also recognized by government standards, government organizations around the world. We also discuss about branding, but let me revisit since I have written separate. Branding is important aspect. Your colors on the screen should also talk about your customer. Your image should also be very much equivalent to your customers. So for example, right now I'm using Tieto every font style in my entire style sheet. So similarly, when you are building your application, you should also consider that. Now let's see individual page, how you should be developing that. Now the left hand side shows one page with the details. It has some text box, one checkbox and one radio. Now in here, the text box element, what should be the font of it, what should be the secondary font on the screen, what should be the outline of this text box, if there is any typo, writing mistake, how you should highlight with the border outline. So you should be thinking all these aspects in single file that you are placing in styles folder. So on each page, you should not write what should be the font color. You should be just importing that class in here. Now when this single page is ready, you are going to move to the application. So this single page, when you are looking into the entire application, you should see how it fits into the application flow. Previous screen, this developed screen, and then next screen. Whether these screens are having couple of flow navigations or there is a disturbance in the color, there is disturbance in the font style, you should be thinking. But it's not about only the single page. When you are developing entire application, you are having header, footer, accordions, menus. So this should be looking good. So you tell me how your application should look like. Should it be easy to understand, or you should be having slates like Puneri people have? Click me, click me, click me. No, your page should be self-explanatory and your end user should be able to access it. Now, if you follow all these patterns, it is now your check time. You will be getting some paybacks. What are these paybacks? So these paybacks consist of productivity. So when you are talking about productivity, teams can work in parallel, they can develop their systems, and they are able to deploy and test it themselves. Then there is expansibility. So when new features are getting implemented, the impact of these new features on the existing design, existing system would be minimalistic. Then we also discuss about some principle called as open and close. So these systems are open for new development, but you are also making abstraction, so they would be closed. Going ahead, we have scalability. So when you are having multiple loads, how those should be tackled. Testability. So your single use case, your single story would be tested. And the last point is readability. Since your code is new, since your code is already structured, a newbie would be able to jump into the project and start working with you very faster. So this is kind of payback time, but what is the most thing that our managers look at? So this is the time that you spend on developing new feature. For example, if there is a new feature, new CR gets added, your existing project should not break. They also consider how much time you would be spending to revisiting the older components, changing them, and then writing new workspace. So this way your time would be reduced when you follow correct practices. Now let me just summarize this session, that we have various architecture patterns and systems we have gone through or we have used, kind of waterfall, agile, cloud native. But now next question is, what would be the next? Since right now we are already using scaling, auto scaling, using infrastructure like AWS, Azure, but we should also be thinking this is not the end of the software's life cycle. There would be something new coming each time. So currently we are using microservices, but next time there would be something new that would be available in the market and you would be using it. So that's all for today's session. Thank you all.